Thursday, March the 8th. Lake level is about 915 and a half. The lake stabilized out and actually came down a little bit. Water temperature, depends where you're at on the lake, but you'll see anywhere from 46 to low 50s, especially in the afternoon in the stained water. A lot of the lake has got really good color to it, and the lower end down by the dam has got a lot of good clear water. The bite for me last week really seemed to pick up from the weekend. I actually had a few really tough days in the middle of the week, but then it got really good towards the weekend. And I was catching them several different ways, but probably one of the best bites had been the crankbait bite and a jig bite. Now the crankbaits, it seemed like if I was in the stained water, I was doing a lot better on the crankbaits. And a wiggle wart, a strike king 3X will work, or a rock crawler. But it seems like the colors that were working best for me is something with some red in it, like brown crawdad, V38, which is a green crawdad, or even almost a solid red with a little black on the back. And even one, if you've got one that's got a little orange on the belly. Seem like the orange and reds, which is kind of common for the springtime. Now another thing we was catching some fish on, if you get into the stained water and they start biting that crankbait fairly good, pick up a rage blade. This is a rage blade, Strike King, or basically it's a chatterbait. But I was using a chartreuse and white. Now if I was in the clearer water, I would probably use a green pumpkin. I've got a rage swimmer, 3-point, I think it's a 3.4 swim bait trailer. And on this one I've got a green pumpkin where it matches. On the chartreuse and white one, I've got a white 3-point, I think it's a 3.4 rage swimmer. But Kitech will work, or any kind of small swim bait. And it seemed like a half ounce was working a little better for me. I was setting the boat about 12 to 15 foot of water and trying to keep the bait bouncing off of the bottom. Same areas that you throw the crankbait. A lot of it was mixed rod, but a lot of the key was I just had to keep the trolling motor down and fish. They might come right by the points of some of the pockets, the little guts. The majority of everything that I caught was in the creeks. And it seems sometimes the further back I got in the creeks, the better the bite was, because I would also get a little bit more stain in the water. Now what had happened last week, when they were pulling the lake so hard, it actually cleared quite a few of the creeks out, because what it did is it pulled that dirty water out of the creeks when they were generating so much water. Well, now that they've slowed the water down, the color's kind of stabilized out and it's not moving. Like one day it would be in the halfway in the creek, the next day it would be 3/4 of the way back where the stain was. The stain seems pretty consistent right now. Another thing, if you get some wind, you might try a spinnerbait. And I'd probably throw like a double willow leaf, War Eagle, 3/8 or half ounce, 1 gold, 1 nickel. I haven't done very much on the jerkbait. Now if the crankbait bite slows down, you can probably catch them on either a shaky head or a jig. But where they've been biting that crankbait, I've been having a hard time slowing down throwing a jig on some of those banks. But it seems like where it goes from chunk rock to gravel, one of them might be out on a secondary point. The next bite might be all the way in the back of a pocket. But there's been a lot of numbers of fish. This past weekend there were 2 or 3 different tournaments, and there was a lot of A-rig fish caught as well. There was several 20-pound stringers, and I think they came on the A-rig. Some of them came on mixed deals, A-rig, crankbait, and a jig. Now I know they're biting a jig real well up at Lake of the Ozarks. A buddy of mine had 25 pounds up there and a solo pro last weekend, and he caught him on this prototype jig that 5 Fish Lures is coming out with. Now I should have some of them in a week or two, so I can show you. I've kind of helped design them a little bit, so it's a really neat little jig we're coming out with several different baits, but the first line will be this ultimate finesse jig. And apparently it's working real good because Bobby Albert had 25 pounds with 5 fish last weekend. So as soon as I get some of them in my hands, we'll go over them and I'll show you what's so neat about them. Also, Sportsman Factory Outlet wanted me to let you know that they're changing their hours on Saturdays. They're going to be open till 4 o'clock now on Saturdays, up throughout the middle of the summer, I believe. So to give you, a chance to get in there on the weekends if you got to get some tackle. But the fishing, every day should just get better and better as these fish, the bigger fish are really starting to show up. Like I say, there was some really big weights last week. Another way that I was catching them too, when it slowed down on the crankbait, it seemed like if I got out more towards the mouths of the creeks and the clear water, I could catch them on little underspins with either a 4-inch chompers or Yamamoto. This one's kind of tore up, but this one's got a little 2.8 Kitech on it. And most of it I was throwing a 1/4 ounce and throwing it on 6 or 8 pound line, trying to keep the boat in about 20-25 feet of water. Some days I'm scratching it off the bottom. Other days I'll let it go down about 5 to 8 feet. And another good area to try that bait is off some of these main lake points and bluff ends, where you can sit the boat in 30 to 40 feet of water, where that point comes out and flattens out to about 12 feet. And just real slow, and keep an eye on your electronics, see where the fish and the bait is suspended, and try to get that bait in that depth. Normally, if you let that bait drop about 1 foot a second, then maintain a steady, slow retrieve that'll keep that bait in the strike zone a little bit longer. But, like I say, every day's getting better and better. It's not going to be but about 3-4 weeks before some of the fish start to move up on beds. So, till next week, good luck, good fishing.